The ending of last month has ignited a widespread debate with the arrest of veteran journalist Don Lemon and independent reporter Georgia Ford for covering an anti-ICE protest at St. Paul, Minnesota church. The charges are including alleged interference with religious freedom. It has ignited that debate over whether journalism is now being criminalized for covering immigration enforcement and protests. Press freedom organizations, civil rights leaders, and everyday citizens are sounding to alarm around the implications for the First Amendment once again. Now, Don Lemon is a familiar face for millions, and independent reporter Georgia Ford were detained by the federal agents, not for violent conduct, not for wrongdoing, but for reporting on a protest against federal immigration enforcement, ICE. And the legal tools being used to justify these arrests, law that ordinary people have never been applied to journalism. This is not a theory. This is not for fear mongering. This is happening, and it has happened in the United States of America. Now, on January 18th of this year, 2026, a group of demonstrators entered during a service to protest immigration and custom enforcement policies and leadership. A pastor affiliated with ICE was present. The protest turned disruptive and emotional, but not physically violent or wildly chaotic. Don Lemon, an independent reporter journalist, have been mainstreaming television, was on the site live streaming the event, interviewing people, narrating what was happening, identifying himself as press. Now, on the 30th and the 31st of January, federal agents arrested Don Lemon in Los Angeles while covering the Grammy Awards. Georgia Ford at her home in Minnesota in early mornings arrested. It was live streamed by herself. Now, another person, Tahrim Jean Cruz and Jamil Lundy, were activists connected to the same protest. Now, Georgia Ford has told her viewers, agents are at my door right now. I don't feel like I'm having, I have my First Amendment right as a member of the press. Multiple outlet reports that Don Lemon was charged with federal civil rights violation, including conspiracy, interfering with worshippers' rights, which makes no sense. So invoking a status traditionally aimed at protecting religious freedoms and place of worship. Lemon was later released on a personal recognizance bond, but still faces charges and pending court date. The government is charging these journalists under statutes literally or usually applied to violating religious freedom of worshippers, conspiracy to deprive civil rights, interference with place of public worship. Now, these laws, my voice is very scrappy, guys. I'm just getting over a cold. These laws, like conspiracy statutes, stemming from the Civil Rights Act of 1871, were historically designed to combat coordinated violent interference and intimidations, not journalistic observations and reporting. So, critics argue that applying these statutes to reports is a stretch of legal intent, chilling normal journalistic work. Now, from the American Civil Rights Liberty (ACLU) to the Minnesota Journalism and Zila Center Coalition media organization have condemned these arrests. The ACLU, the actions by the Trump administration, says attacks on freedom of the press, saying such detentions sends a message that journalists might be prosecuted for covering protests. The Minnesota Journalism Center and the Zila Center issued a statement explicitly saying that the press reporting on public protests is a protected activity and arresting journalists for being there weakens democratic norms. And across online platforms from Reddit to X, ordinary citizens are processing this in real time. He was there to report. This feels like criminalizing journalism. This is on Reddit. And on CBS News, if the government can arrest journalists for being present, no press badge will protect anyone. Then we have another one from Reddit. This seems like a political intimidation and lawfare. Another one from Reddit. Reporting in a protest is a distinct form of participating in it. So some commenters link these arrests to the broader frustration with how immigration enforcement and the federal response to coverage of it has unfolded. They see this arrest just not as a legal action, but as part of a pattern of suppressing dissenting voices. In America, the First Amendment guarantees freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of peaceful assembly. Journalists covering protests, even when controversial, or doing precisely what press freedom is meant to protect, bearing witness, documenting public events, and holding powers accountable. Now, press freedom experts note that using these criminal statutes that prosecutes reporters sets a dangerous precedent, one that blurs the line between journalistic presence and criminal participation. Public statements from legal scholars echo journalism is not a crime. This isn't about lemon or fort. When journalists are intimidated, arrested, or prosecuted for covering public events, democracy loses a watchdog. Transparency erodes. Citizens receive filtered, partial information. Fear spreads among other reporters, and that affects everyone, not just those who work in the media. And on one social media says bluntly, today is journalistic or journalist. Tomorrow it might be you. And surely enough. So in the next few weeks, the court tests whether the government can apply civil rights and conspiracy statutes to journalism for simply reporting. If the charges are upheld, it could reshape how press freedom is understood in America, not just in immigration context, but nationwide. Okay, this is a test of the First Amendment once again in real time, in public view, and history is watching. I'm Anessa Qalbi. Stay informed, stay vigilant. Sorry for my raspy voice. If you like what you're seeing, please do subscribe, like, comment, and share. Until next time, for the next report, I leave you in the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.